And welcome to Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal football, presented by our good friends over at SportBuff. Where if you use the promo code Flightdeck10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. Follow me if you choose or choose not to on X over at Cliffy D.
I did that last week.
You did. Well done.
While we're in the same room.
And may I say you finally got the recording right this time. No,
Yes.
no false starts. I'm impressed.
Well,
we're professionals.
Sleep will do that.
It helps. Maybe not jumping off a plane after a 5-hour flight and going right to the podcast studio may have also contributed that to it as well.
But I gotta be professional about this type of thing.
100%.
You know what I mean? So gotta do what you gotta do. You know what? I'm gonna mention it anyways, Cliff. Yes, because of the of potentially current situations. We just a reminder, Cliff and I are over on Blue Sky, as is the Alouette Flight Deck. Flight Deck can be found at Alouette's FL Deck at BSKY at .social. Same thing with Cliff and myself. So it's repact.bsky.social. So cliffyd.bsky.social. That does not roll off the tongue at all.
Not even a little bit. It is
just do a search for it. Do a search for the Alouettes Flight Deck. You'll see both of our links there anyways. So you'll be able to follow us there also. And we appreciate all the new followers, by the way.
Exactly. I mean, that's one thing with Grey Cup. I think just with the vast uncertainty that could be with Twitter or Twix or X or whatever the hell you call Elon's app. But it seems a lot of people are going where the skies are blue. So, folks, if you decided to join that and you're following us as well, we definitely appreciate it. Welcome aboard, and we'll try to keep it just as entertaining, pretty much on all of our social media platforms, regardless of what they may be. We certainly try to bring the content as much as possible. So again, thank you for following and subscribing. As always, it's definitely appreciated.
Today was kind of a tough day, considering that, was it yesterday or today? It would have been, or is it a year? No, it was a year yesterday. I think it was a year yesterday that the Alouettes won the Grey Cup. And obviously this time around, Cliff and I were in Vancouver with CFL family, less the team, but Alouettes Nation was represented quite well in Vancouver, and I was quite impressed.
Mm-hmm.
And we still wanted to give our experience over for our Grey Cup experience over in Vancouver, because my first time to Vancouver, was it yours? I can't remember. Was it yours?
First time I was in Vancouver, I was 8 years old. And so, again, without dating myself too much, it's been quite some time since I've been there. So in a lot of ways, I was seeing it again for the first time, at least first time as an adult. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And being that we're here this week, Grey Cup wasn't this week. It's kind of good that it wasn't this week, considering the weird weather bomb. I had to go back and check. I had to look up what it actually meant, but the weather bomb that they had in Vancouver, the Vancouver area and stuff like that. Hope everybody is safe and stuff like that, because it would have been very interesting. But still, I got to experience what Vancouver weather is what it's like in November, and it was it's kind of what I expected,
Lots of rain. I mean, I mean, I was there for essentially a week, and lots of rain, a little bit of sunshine, a lot of overcast. I mean, it was, at least it wasn't snowing, and it wasn't like, minus temperature wise. I mean, it was single digits, but Celsius, folks. I guess for our American listeners and viewers, I guess the weather would be in like the 40s.
Yeah, between 40 and 50 degrees. It was about between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I mean, we were past sweater weather. It was not sweater weather. It was jacket weather.
Yeah, it was jacket weather.
Which, again, if you saw on Flightdeck Live, our beautiful puffer jackets that we've ordered, that was put to very good use in Vancouver and did its job magically.
Yep, I agree. I agree with you. Um, I said the overall experience itself, I think, was for me. I'll give it an A. Obviously, as I said, there was a lot of Vancouver that I wasn't able to see that I'll have to go back and see again because there's do a little bit more touristy things and stuff like that. But the way it was set out, Cliff, in Vancouver, I tell you, dude. Yeah, anybody who was in Hamilton last year for Grey Cup and was there for the Great their festival. Uh, I don't want to necessarily call it night and day with how the festivals were. It's just that the venues themselves this year, if anybody had not been able to make it to Vancouver, the venues were completely different. These places were just absolutely massive. And I don't know if necessarily that was a plus or a minus. I mean, because I guess it gave more room if you wanted to sell more. If you wanted to sell merch in your specific team party room, which they did, or
Mhm.
beer or food or whatever they did.
Mhm.
So it worked even for the Alouettes one, even though the Alouettes one was there just for one day on Saturday, one night on Saturday. They did that too. I think they didn't have
Mhm.
his merch.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it was done well. They used the space very well. They used the space very well. But I will admit, sometimes the rooms themselves weren't as homey as last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's trying to find that balance because you don't want it to be too cavernous, but at the same time, you don't want to be, you know, shoulder to shoulder with people like for like the better part of 4 or 5 hours. Especially if you decide you want to be just in, like, say, your team's room for lack of a better term. Ideally, you should want to go and check out all the rooms at least to see what's doing and what events are going on, what live music is being played in each room, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's to me that's part of the Grey Cup experience as well, is to check out every room and get a good feel of where it's at. And again, you may decide, okay, we're going to spend our time at Spirit of Edmonton. We're going to spend our time over at BC Lions Den, at the Montreal Huddle. Like, again, your mileage may vary, and as I always say, Grey Cup is what you make of it. It all comes down to what do you want to do with your time there. And there was definitely no shortage of things to do in the party rooms. I mean, if you just want to go and have a few drinks with your friends, you can do that. If you want to play games or watch sporting events, you can do that too. If
Yeah.
you want to get screeched in and have a lobster roll, you can. There's a room for that too. So I mean, you're just limited to your own imagination and what it is that you want to do for your Grey Cup. Essentially, that's to me that's what Grey Cup should be all about: is going and being a part of something special. You're meeting up with friends and family, and just basically celebrating the great game that is Canadian football.
The general the main hall itself, where they had all of the mascots made up from Pepsi products, which fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, the wall of helmets, which I'm going to say it again, kind of pissed me off because if anybody saw the pictures, the Owls kind of got shafted. I really think so because there were only 8 spokes in this display, and it was like the Alouettes were an afterthought. I was like, "Really? Really? Are you really doing that?"
Yeah,
But
especially when you look at Calgary's, like they had 4 helmets, and they, aside from like the stripe down the middle, they all looked the same. Like, and
yeah,
Calgary has done different variations of their logo, believe it or not. But had they done that, it would have looked a little bit better. But I mean, as- unless you really went up there and looked for the stripe specifically, on first glance, you would just thought it was like 4 of the same helmet. Whereas, as you said, yeah, Montreal only had like 2 helmets showing, and the Alouettes arguably have had many different helmets over the
mhm.
years. So I mean, they could have filled one of those. Well, I mean, listen, it's a display thing.
I know,
Anyone,
but
anyone who gets
still,
their
if you're gonna treat all teams equally, where are my 2 helmets? Where are my other 2 helmets?
that's it. If you want to let that affect your Grey Cup experience, then I don't have to tell
Hey,
you.
you gotta. Hey, if I'm gonna bitch about something, it's gonna be uniform related. You come on. This is me. Come on.
Uniform or stats, yeah, that's
Okay.
fair. That's fair.
That room though was quite nice. They used the space quite well at for whatever the main center what area whatever the main area was called. You had At one point, you had the Grey Cup there. You had the new busts for the inductees for this year's Hall of Fame. You had alumni there doing autographs. You had an indoor zip line, and
For the kids, it should
yeah,
be
yeah,
made
yeah,
because
yeah.
the outdoor zip line is definitely an adults only thing. But if kids want to get in on that too, and it was again very safe, not a very big fall, and there was plenty of those big cushions. I forget what they're called. Like I forget what they're called.
Cushions. We'll
We'll
stick
call
with
them
that.
cushions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the same stuff that bouncy houses are made out of.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The name fails me at this moment, but yes, if you had kids that wanted to do zip lining, they could, and it was awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, and please, anybody who's listening or watching this, let us know in the uh let us know, give us a comment if you know about this, or DM us, or send us a message. Was this the very first time that that any Grey Cup festival has offered a radio row? Because now, mind you, yes, this was only my sixth Grey Cup, and I don't over the times that I went to the festival when it started getting bigger, I don't remember this type of thing. I don't remember there being a radio row.
Yeah, I struggled to think of a time they would have had that as well. I kind of feel like Ottawa had tried to do a radio row and it didn't quite go quite as planned. Or at least it didn't feel like it got quite the attention it could or should have. It's kind of a tricky thing too because I know like a lot of the media types that were there that were doing Radio Row were doing like their daily radio show basically from Grey Cup, so that gave them the chance to attend Grey Cup and at the same time still do their radio show in their respective city.
Mhm.
Uh, there were a couple of podcasts that were set up as well, and
Didn't Rod Peterson do his show there from the week?
Rod Pearson did do a show that I believe from there as well. So I mean, there were possibilities to do stuff, and funny enough, we were not mentioned or asked about any of this, and I don't believe any of the other podcasts were asked or mentioned to be a part of this as well, which is unfortunate because I think we could have probably done something for sure if had we known that this existed. Like we didn't find out about this until we were invited to be on a show on Radio Row,
Yeah.
but it was just
Hell,
like
even the X's and Argos, as far as we know, Ben was not invited to do this.
yeah,
Or three down.
or Piffles or Turf District or any of the other well-known podcasts, ourselves included.
Yes, but what I meant is if we were to go game specific, that's kind of what I meant. Sorry.
Fair enough, but yeah, it's yeah. I wish I had a better answer, and maybe if someone does have a better answer, by all means, as Tim said, let us know in the comments, or hit us up and let us know what's the story. Because yeah, something like that. I think if you'd reached out to a vast majority of the podcast, like CFL podcasts that are out there, I'm sure somebody would have dedicated maybe not do all 3-4 days of the festival doing a radio show there, but maybe even just like one a day. Like you feature like one podcast or 1, 2, 3 podcasts a day, just set up at different times so that people can come and check it out and be part of that experience if they so choose.
Yeah. One thing, by the way, saying and I want to hear about your a lot. I want you to be able to tell your part of your experience, because obviously you were there for a lot longer than I was. I will say, when it comes to coziness and stuff like that, two things that really stood out to me. The Eastern Team Party Room was really, because you and I experienced that on Saturday, was really, really weird. It was like a sport. It's just done up like a sports bar. Anybody who was there last year in Hamilton, it was completely different than last year in Hamilton. I don't know if it's on a positive or a negative. I don't know where to put it, but
Mm.
of all the ones, and yes, I'm biased, I hate to tell you, I really think that the Alouettes did it perfectly. It was the right size room. They had a great location. Could you see what it would have been like if the Alouettes had done it on Friday night, especially with the drone show being postponed to Friday night? The view that we would have gotten from that area.
Would have been pretty cool. And props to whoever it was that decided that poutine had to be served at the Montreal party, because that was just one of those nice little touches. I mean, like if you're gonna do a Montreal based party, it's things like that. Like I know, but in the past, you know, a lot of rooms would do like specific beers that are indigenous to the region, so to speak. Like not
Hmm.
indigenous in that sense, but like
Yeah, yeah,
native to the, like for example, like Quebec would be, there's all kinds of Quebec based beers you could bring in, Saskatchewan based beers for Riderville, uh, BC, which has a great craft scene. Their beers were featured because that's who the contract is with
yeah. I think
Vancouver Convention Center.
that was the issue too. I think,
But
but yes,
again,
I agree.
if BC decided to like, if it was just like, in the BC room to have their own specific BC based beers, that would have been awesome too. I mean, that to me that would have made things a lot interesting. Now again, because most of these convention centers or festivals and things like that usually have a contract with, say, Molson or Labatt or something like that. Sometimes you have to kind of go towards them when it comes
Hmm.
to those types of beers. Which, okay, fair game. It's just kind of weird that, like, for example, like the Atlantic Schooners party, for example, their big thing was having Alexander Keefe's to go with your lobster roll. Whereas this year, you're drinking
Uh-huh.
it with a Coors Light or a, uh, Granville Island beer, because again, that's part of their,
Yeah,
part of the thing there. So a little different, but it is what it is. I mean, I personally, I would like to see something like that, but the fact that Montreal still fought to bring in puts in for their Saturday night party, I thought was just a nice little touch. I mean, I would have also liked to see maybe a smoked meat carving station and you know,
hmm,
all dressed hot dogs, steamies. But okay, in due time, maybe next year in Winnipeg, that's what they'll do, based on the success of this party. And I will give props to the Alouettes organization for having that party Saturday night, because they kind of shied away from it over the past few years. Then I think it was the last 2-3 years they've been kind of lumped in with the other Eastern teams in that Eastern team social.
yeah,
Which, okay, fine. At least technically they do have a presence at the Grey Cup party, but to not have their own party just kind of, I won't say dampens it necessarily, but it'd be kind of nice to have your own sort of thing. And people were very responsive to it, which I'm pleasantly surprised to see. Now again, not everybody's going to enjoy it because, okay, the cheerleaders come out, there's a DJ that's playing music, they're doing dance routines, people can congregate, have a beer, have puts in, and talk football or what have you. But for some people, that's not the Grey Cup experience they're looking for. Like, some people, as I said, they prefer to go and see live bands play. They want to have more locally themed things, like
yeah.
pursuant to that city. So they would have like more Montreal based stuff going on there. Uh, like, I mean, there's a lot that they could have done differently. I think what they were able to do for their first standalone party in close to 10 years, I think they did a very admirable job. I think the cheerleaders definitely came out and did great work, like great publicity work too, because they were milling about through the crowd and interacting with people, and it was awesome. I mean, I think,
And we're there for the entire 4 hours. They were there from 8 to 4. They were nonstop.
you mean 8 to 1.
Sorry, 8 to 1. Yeah, they were there just nonstop.
Yeah, I mean
So,
they shut down the party, so which is great.
mhm,
I mean, it was nice to see that, and even though you didn't see too many Alouettes players there, like, I mean, it was still the seeing some of the top brass there was a nice
yes.
touch, and also too, like, they had to get a feel for things as well and find out how receptive people were going to be to this. And as I said, I think a lot of people were really cool to the idea that, okay, great, the Alouettes are putting on a party, as they should, because they were last year's Grey Cup champions. They definitely should be represented and give them a chance to have their own space, even if it's just for the one day. I mean, personally, I think overall they did a very good job with it. Will they be able to top that in Winnipeg? Is there even a demand for that? I mean, only time's going to tell. But I hope they keep up the idea of having it, even if it's just for one day, like the Saturday night.
I think it's
If they,
perfect for one night. I agree. Yeah, I think it's perfect.
uh, like I said, some of these parties have been around forever, since like BC Lions Den, Riderville, Spirit of Edmonton. Those are institutions, absolutely, and those can definitely sustain a 3-4 night, stretch, if you will.
Mhm, mhm.
Whereas Montreal, maybe not quite there yet. I mean, maybe once that party picks up a little bit more traction and they start doing other things and really make it a very Montreal specific thing, I think there's definitely demand for it. I think there's definitely something that you can do with it. So I, I'm really curious to see what they do in Winnipeg next year.
Yeah. There was a presence of Alouette players. We'll be talking about that. There were some there in Vancouver for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to at least for you to be able to tell about your experience, guys. Again, because you did quite a few. Because obviously, us being there representing, I guess we could say local Montreal media, is that we were able to participate in certain league sanctioned, whether it be pressers or award ceremonies or whatever it may be. And obviously we got to let everybody know about your experience itself. So, uh, not trying to put aside from what you did personally, because I know you did some great stuff and you did some of the touristy stuff again, which I wish I'd gotten there a little bit earlier. I could have done that, but let's let everybody know about your experience being a representative of the Alouettes flight deck.
I guess we can start if we're going to go with the media route. Let's start with the unofficial welcoming party put on by Farhan Lalji and Dave Naylor of TSN. They put on a party last Wednesday evening, and pretty much anyone associated with media was at this party, which was absolutely fantastic. Not just local media in Vancouver, British Columbia, but pretty much anyone who is going to be covering this league, covering the Grey Cup game, from all 9 cities basically and
Mm-hmm.
beyond. Pretty much everyone that's involved with Canadian football media was there, myself included. It was great to see a whole bunch of people. Rod Peterson, friend of the show, was there. He spent a good amount of time with him, and obviously Rod's in fine form. And I think this was his first Grey Cup in a couple of years as well. So I think he was very excited to be there. And even if it meant getting out of the Florida sun, as he's based in Florida now, go all the way to rainy Vancouver. I don't know how much fun that was for him, but I mean, he was in great spirits. So I was, shout out to Rod for, being able to spend some time with him. Talked with all sorts of people. What really got me though was quite a few BC Lions were actually at this event as well, which I was funny because it seemed to be more media based, but at the same time, I guess since players, were there to represent the Lions, we got to see that. So got to see former Alouettes Sean White and our quarterback Vernon Adams Jr. Really awesome to spend time with those guys as well as per usual. Uh, I will say I won't get into too many details, but Vernon was very candid about a lot of things, up to and including his situation right now with the BC Lions, or at least at the time, because it seemed to be a foregone conclusion that when the CFL season ended on Grey Cup Sunday, it was just going to be a matter of time when he was going to be traded. And I bandied a few things around with him, like try to get his thoughts on that as well. And as I said, he was very candid. I'm not going to really reveal too much because there are so many moving pieces right now, especially with some of the news that came out today. So
Okay. Oh my
some of the
God,
stuff,
no kidding.
some of the stuff we talked about may be obsolete. So one thing I will say though is great attitude as always from Vernon. Nothing but love for us, which is right back at you, pal. We definitely appreciate everything you've done for us here on the Alouettes flight deck. And no matter what, the one thing you can be guaranteed of is that wherever Vernon Adams ends up, he will be their leader, and he will do everything he can to bring that team into Grey Cup contention. So we'll see where the chips are going to fall over the next days, weeks, months of the CFL offseason, but so good to spend time with Vernon. So good to spend time with Sean White as well. I mean, always these guys are fantastic. Again, back to the media people. So many, like a lot of the people from TSN that we've known and had on the show. Absolutely fantastic to sit and chat with them. David Sanchez, always a good time with that guy. So, I mean, it was great. I mean, it's just a great event overall. Uh, Definitely, if you're a media member covering Grey Cup, you really truly owe it to yourself to come to this event. It really is a great place to hobnob or network or whatever you want to call it, to just get in meeting with a lot of these people. And
Mm-hmm.
again, people were coming up to me too, like, oh, Alouettes flight deck, and I was like, you know about the Alouettes flight? wow, okay. And then it always takes me a little bit by surprise. I don't want to humble brag or anything like that, but I'm always pleasantly surprised just how big of our reach seems to be, at least within the media landscape. That like people are like, wow, okay, and people want to know how we're doing. People want to know how we're going about our business with the podcast, and I'm happy to share that. And the fact that people are that interested in us, I mean, it's humbling and really appreciated. So, I mean, again, thank you to everybody who came up and said hello and asked about the flight deck and all that. And people were asking for you too, Tim. I mean, like, when are we going to see Tim? I promise you, he's coming. He'll be here this weekend. So if you didn't get a chance to see Tim or I, well, at Grey Cup, well, I mean, we were out and about, so I mean, we weren't that hard to find. So definitely come up and say hello if you hadn't. So
Yeah.
again, thank you to everybody who did come up and say hello. It was definitely appreciated. Uh, now going on to the CFL Awards, which we were present at. Uh, as per usual, being in the media room for the event itself, we found out in advance who was going to be winning the awards, and essentially we had Isaac Adeyemi Berglund up for most outstanding Canadian against Brady Oliveira. We had Tyrese Beverett up against Roland Milligan Jr. for most outstanding defensive player. And we had head coach Jason Moss up against Saskatchewan head coach Corey Mace for coach of the year. As you and I talked about, Tim, it seemed like it was going to be probably only one of those three actually walking away with some hardware. And sure enough, that was the case. Coach Moss definitely did win coach of the year in the 2024 season. I'm not going to lie. I was not surprised to see Brady Oliveira walk away with the most outstanding Canadian. What irked me, though, was the vote tally, the final tally for it. As you may or may not know, there are 56 votes that are registered for the award. Why it's an even number, not an odd number, I'm not sure. That's, again, not my call to make. Because, again, in the event, God forbid there was an actual tie, I don't know what you'd do. In any event, though, that wasn't the case with the most outstanding Canadian. Brady Oliveira received 55 votes out of 56, which means only one for Isaac. And I am truly shocked. I mean, yes, I understand why you would give it to Brady Oliveira. I had a feeling Brady would come through and get the award. I just have a hard time accepting the fact that, with the exception of one vote, it was a clean sweep for him. I mean, did anyone else not see what Isaac Adeyemi Bergen was able to do for the Alouettes this year, and maybe think about casting him a vote? You've talked about the Western bias, Tim,
Yeah.
and it couldn't have been more evident right there. And I'm truly baffled. I'm sorry if that makes me sound like a homer, then so be it. But I look at the year that Isaac had, and I mean, he truly was outstanding, not just for the Alouettes, but as far as I'm concerned, the Eastern Division and even throughout the league. Like, he definitely should have gotten a lot more consideration. And the fact that he only got one vote, extremely disappointing. And I saw him afterwards, and it's funny. He came up to me like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Like, he was in really good spirits, all things considered. And I told him, "No, like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pissed for you." He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, well, when I explained to him what the count was, like, he kind of got this look on his face, like, "Okay, okay, sure, okay, cool, cool." Like, you could tell that kind of lit a fire under him, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's like, okay, like, he's gonna come in. I got a feeling he's gonna come into training camp in May with a just a little chip on his shoulder, like that the disrespect from the other coaches, the media, everybody who votes. Unfortunately, we didn't get a vote this year, and trust me, I would not have been shy saying yes, that's who we're voting for. But I digress. Yeah, Isaac, as great as it was to see him, but you could tell, like, okay, it's on now. Like he's going to be serving the rest of the league notice. And he said, next year, I promise you, I'm coming not just for most outstanding Canadian, but most outstanding defensive player, and like, he was like, I'm ready to, like, he just got his motivation. That was his bulletin board
Yeah.
material. And listen, I hope he uses it to his advantage, because yeah, I don't blame him for being upset. Tyrese Beverett, that was a little bit closer. I truly thought that that could have been a very tight competition as well. I believe Milligan got 35 of the 56 votes.
Yeah. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was 35 out of 56. So, I mean, I guess a little bit more competitive, but I mean, I still think that could have easily been a 50-50 vote. Didn't get a chance to see Bev afterwards, unfortunately, but I thought, okay, once again, Western bias, and yes, let's not forget there was a lot of clamoring for that to be the MOP battle. Instead, it ended up being the
Yeah.
MODP battle. And once again, call it Western bias if you want to, but yeah, I think a lot of people saw what Milligan was able to do. And yes, let's make no mistake, he did have an outstanding season. So in a lot of ways, he is definitely deserving of the award. But it almost feels like Bev didn't quite get the love that he should have. I mean, I would have liked to have seen it a lot closer than what 35-21. But once again, I mean, at least people were voting for Bev, so I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't be mad at that. And I'm sure once again he's going to use that as bulletin board material. That's going to light a fire under him to be even better next year. So if that's what it takes for these guys to get motivated, then they've got it. They got their motivation now. So they should be coming into camp raring to go and just a little bit insulted and disrespected. And maybe that's what it's going to take to really truly light a fire into them. And if that's the case, then well, job well done, media.
Yeah, and there is Bev news, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah,
We will.
it was a negative there as far as when it came to the award itself, but a huge positive for Alouette fans for the team itself. But again, we'll talk about that later. And
Absolutely.
there's the one award, as we said, that we thought that we were gonna um, take away, and that was obviously between the two head coaches.
Absolutely. And as I to surprise not to no one's surprise, at least here on this podcast, yes, it was head coach Jason Moss walking away with coach of the year. As we discussed, is this sort of a makeup call for last year a little bit, since because the work that Jason Moss has done to turn this Alouettes team around and get them to the Grey Cup game, win the whole thing, and damn near do it again in 2024, there's no question in my mind that is definitely worthy of coach of the year. I mean, Corey Mace did a fantastic job too in turning around the Saskatchewan Roughriders from being a laughing stock into, again, one game away from going to a Grey Cup themselves. A lot of people really did think it was going to be Montreal versus Saskatchewan, and then you would have seen yet another battle between Corey Mace and Jason Moss. But
Mhm.
as it stands, I mean, especially last year, it's easy to understand why the Eastern nominee would be the guy who posted a 16-2 record. So
Yeah, yeah,
that made a lot of sense. And by that same token, the coach that had the most wins in the Canadian Football League this year was Jason Moss with the Alouettes. So his nomination should not have come as a surprise, as well as his win. What was very exciting, though, was during the CFL awards, as you know, we are given the winners in advance with the idea that it does not leave the room until, and the players themselves or the coaches that are nominated, they don't know who the winner is until they're up on stage. They open the envelope, and the winner is announced
yeah.
afterwards. Once they receive their award, give their speech on the grand stage, they come to the backstage area to take photos of themselves with the awards as well as speak with the media. Now, when Coach Moss came into the room, that's exactly what happened. He stood, took pictures with the awards, put it
The,
down, went to
the
the.
new awards, by the way.
That's yes, actually, that's very true. The awards are very different from what they have been the past couple of years.
Very,
Some
very.
some some would argue maybe not quite as big as previous awards. So I mean, it. I'm not gonna lie, they do kind of look on the tiny side. I mean, they look okay, but they're not. I don't know. I kind of liked how the awards were last the past few years with the big CFL LCF logo
Yep.
on there, and it was you couldn't miss it. I mean, it was a pretty noticeable piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Whereas this almost kind of looks like a bowling trophy, to tell you the truth. Like,
Yeah, it looks like the league never really made a big deal about it. And this is a new trophy. I'm very surprised they didn't make a big deal about this in a whole, the whole press release, yada yada yada, and glam shots, et cetera, et cetera. But I
yeah,
digress.
and one can make the argument it's not about the trophy itself; it's about the name of the trophy, the distinction of being the winner
Yeah,
that
yeah,
matters. And if that's the route you want to go with, then so be it. Then I mean, yes, being named coach of the year is more important than whatever little tchotchke they're going to give you to symbolize it, if you will. So when Coach Moss came up to the pulpit to take questions and answers from media members, myself included. It was kind of funny. There was a bit of a delay in the sense that as soon as Coach Moss was ready to talk, I don't know if people were looking at me to get the ball rolling, or and I was thinking, okay, a lot of journalists were there, so a lot of journalists were there, and I was expecting them to start right away with the questions, and it almost felt like, for a couple of seconds it was like a little bit of a standoff, like, okay, who's going first, and then to the point where one of the coordinators said, "Somebody say something," like, so I go right away, "Congratulations, coach." He laughed and thanked me, and
Yeah.
I rolled right into my first question, which again, it was a great privilege to be able to have been the first person to ask a question. Again, after he graciously answered my question. And what was nice about Coach Moss was he was not interested in giving short, direct one word answers. Like, he basically told a story. Like, he enunciated and expanded upon his thoughts and everything, which was absolutely fantastic. So once that first question, once the ice got broken, then yes, other journalists jumped in and started asking questions. Not so much about him, but sort of about the Alouette situation himself, which I thought was a little different, considering this is Jason Moss's night, not the Alouettes' night. Like, this is not the
Yeah.
time to be asking about the quarterback controversy that is sure to ensue, or anything else pertaining to the Alouettes himself. Like, this is Jason Moss's night. Why don't we focus on Jason Moss and the coaching job he did? Again,
Again.
that was my thought, and that was like the question that I asked was along those lines. I was more interested in that aspect of things as opposed to the stuff that you can talk about any other day, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. By the way, Jason Moss does become the 5th Alouettes head coach in team history to win the Coach of the Year award. The last coach to do it was Mark Trestman back in 2000, and can't even read my glasses again. 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Then Don Matthews 2002, Charlie Taft in 99 and 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and then Marv Levy back in 1974. So only the 5th time that an Alouettes head coach has won the Coach of the Year award.
And that's some pretty elite company that Coach Moss is in now.
Yeah.
I mean, those are coaches that are synonymous with Alouette's greatness. And for Jason Moss to be a part of that now, I mean, considering how his head coaching journey started in the Canadian Football League to where it's at now, that's pretty damn impressive to be in that same company as like a Mark Trestman or a Marv Levy or anyone else in between. I mean, that if I'm Coach Moss, I'm pretty pleased with being included in such elite company.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, dude. I mean, it's um and any other takeaways from the ceremony itself? I mean, I know that you and I have we have our opinions on the MOP. Brady Oliveira did win. Uh, he did win the trophy this year. Um,
He literally
over
ran away. He literally ran away with most outstanding Canadian.
Yep, and with Bo Levi. But by the way, did they ever announce what the vote was for the MOP?
I've got it written down. I didn't bring it with me
Was
right
it
now.
close? Was it close?
It was
Or
not.
was it
It was.
bevish close?
I'd say more bevish close. It wasn't like Oliveira, Adiemi, Berglund close. Like, it wasn't like a landslide
Right.
for MOP. I mean, Brady Oliveira definitely won convincingly enough, but Bo Levi Mitchell did definitely get some votes as well. So I mean, I'd say it was competitive enough, but yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, I guess Brady Oliveira was not going to be denied. And it was interesting. He was asked afterwards if he felt like this was a makeup call by the CFL, because last year he was up against Chad Kelly, and Chad Kelly won the award. And one would have to wonder if, based on what went down with Chad Kelly afterwards in the offseason, do some of the media members regret voting for him as a result and not voting for Brady Oliveira? Because I said, in my opinion, Brady Oliveira had a much better 2023 season than 2024, as well as
100%. One
not
hundred
to,
percent.
and truthfully should have walked away with MOP last year. So one could make the argument that maybe this was a makeup call for him. He didn't feel like it was. He said, as far as I'm concerned, I feel I earned this award in 2024. And if that's how he feels, that's great. As I said, I
Yeah,
personally
well,
felt his 2023 season was much better than his 2024 season, but could just be a simple matter of voters. If they're not trying to make up for last year, it was simply a matter of, okay, well, he's playing. He's going to be playing for the Grey Cup. He did have a really outstanding season stat wise. That's why you give it to him versus Bo Levi, who yes did have outstanding stats, but his team didn't even make the playoffs. So
you
again,
know what?
we've gone over this a thousand times already, and we're not
Yeah,
going to rehash it again. But
no,
all this to say that Brady Oliveira does not feel like this was a makeup call. One can make
yeah.
the argument it is, but again, if he doesn't feel it is, then I suppose it's not.
Okay, well, here's my hot take. I don't think he deserved the MOP. I don't deserve. I don't. As you even just said it, he had a better 23 than he did at 24.
Yep.
And I honestly think that if the media, other media members had not been as shy, or I don't want to use the word cowardice, but I mean to uh,
Reluctant.
reluctant to try something new when it comes to people who may really were Bo. Okay, Bo, I get. I mean, maybe there was a reluctance um, to vote somebody who had 5,000 yards and all that he did, leading the league in touchdowns. Um, this is a guy who got benched in Montreal and was
Hmm.
able to come back because of an injury. But I mean, with all honesty, I think Bo probably would have been better of a choice in my opinion. Again, people don't like it. Come at me. I don't care. I don't think Brady. I don't think Brady should have been the MOP. I think they should have gone. I think easily again, media could have gone another direction. Uh, I was a proponent of an all defensive MOP fight,
Hmm.
all defensive MOP fight. I really was
Yep.
because, but again, as I said, I don't think Brady deserved the MOP.
Right. And what can make the argument too? Like if you're going to go with like quarterback versus quarterback, you take a look at the stats that Bo Levi put up in 2024 compared to Chad Kelly, who won the MOP in 2023 as a quarterback. Bo's stats were a lot better this year than what Kelly's were last year.
Thank
And
you.
yet it's a quarterback, which a lot of people say it's almost like the MOP is almost unofficially a quarterback award unless in some very rare circumstances, like for example, even this, like I guess it came down to okay, do we vote for the running back who's in the Grey Cup or the quarterback who's not even in the playoffs? Maybe that's the thought process too. But I mean, like if you're going to go strictly by stats, how do you not give the MOP to Bo, who put up better stats than Chad Kelly, who won it in 2023?
Yeah. And by the
So
way, to be fair, I think by the time that these teams are where they are in the playoffs and whoever is in the Grey Cup, the decision's already been made.
I don't think so. I think maybe that they still get that last bit of playoff action to, I guess, finalize their vote.
Mm. Something that I would love to verify. I'm curious to know when the actual voting took place, but either
Uh,
way, either
I
way.
mean, it is what it is. I mean, the the people have spoken, and yes, Brady Oliveira walks away with most outstanding Canadian and most outstanding player.
Yeah.
Which, again, is it deserved? I think in some instances, yes, you can make the argument, but as we just finished doing now, I mean, you can also make the argument for the others. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Props to, I know we're gonna talk about the game itself too, and props to the city, to the whole festival organization for doing a great job that they did. All the different parties and stuff were just fantastic. Um, you and I had the Football Reporters of Canada uh, breakfast and uh, the um, induction for the Hall of Fame members this year, which
Mhm.
was so much fun. Uh, last year was fun too, being able to experience it last year, but this year obviously meant a little bit more for us specifically. Um,
Yeah,
but again,
we have the distinction of having two former guests of the Alouettes flight deck go in as media members of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
mhm,
So once again, congratulations to both Farhan Lalji of TSN and CFL stats guru Steve Daniel. Both men have been on this show. Both men have, you know, been big proponents of the flight deck, so we definitely appreciate them. And again, definitely a well-deserved honor for both gentlemen for different reasons. But yeah, absolutely great to see them get their flowers and be recognized for what they've given to not just the Canadian Football League, but to Canadian football in general and football in Canada as a whole. Both men, in their own way, have done outstanding things to help promote and grow this game. So, yeah, I mean, as far as slam dunk Hall of Fame nominations go, especially this year, being in Vancouver, you're not going to find better than the two BC boys in Farhan Lalji and Steve Daniel.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, I think, as the other things that we did, one thing we have to at least give props to before we talk about the game itself is the success of the CFL Fans Fight Cancer fundraising event.
Yes.
This has been a movement. It's really what it is. It is a movement that has grown so much over the last, it's more than just a few years, but it's
Close
just
to,
grown.
close to 20 years now,
Yeah,
actually.
it's grown from something very little to something big now, and it is one of the events that you need to attend as a part of the CFL family.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, props to the entire organization for the group for what they did, and man, to finally hear the tally, um, from Marsha McNaughton is $75,000 was raised this year, obliterating the previous record from last year.
Yeah. Funny enough, yeah, the record last year was 40,000, which was absolutely phenomenal. At that point, it was the best they'd ever done. And of course, the idea is okay, that's the benchmark. You got to be better than that. That's basically what you're saying to the next host city is you got to top that. And crazy enough, with all these CFL fans that are doing all these satellite events like watch parties, uh, golf tournaments, different fundraising events at tailgates and whatnot. Our friend X Pegger doing his Guinness World Record run for attending attending all the fastest time to attend all 9 CFL stadiums. He was raising money with that as well. Before everybody got to Vancouver for Grey Cup, the $40,000 mark had been just surpassed actually. So they already had beaten the record by
Mhm.
the time the show got underway in Vancouver for Grey Cup weekend. But that wasn't enough. Obviously, you can't just beat the record. You got to, as you said, obliterate it, and that's exactly what CFL fans did. They opened their hearts, their wallets. There were silent auctions, 50-50 draws, bidding for different prizes, and every amount of bid was going towards the local charity that was in place, the Michael Guccione Foundation, I believe it's
Mhm.
called.
Mhm.
Again, and that's a great thing too. Like at the end of the event, a check for the total amount, a check is written to the host city's local foundation and given over for cancer research and awareness, which is absolutely phenomenal. So to hear that final number of $75,000, that means, again, do some quick math. That's like over $30,000 was raised that day, like the Saturday, I guess Grey Cup Eve, if you call it the Saturday before the Grey Cup game itself. And again, I'm sure a lot of it too was again all these people with their outside projects finally bringing that money to
Mhm.
Vancouver and donating it right there on the spot. Between that, the auctions, the 50-50 draws, the everything that was going on, like and there's so much merchandise that was available to be bid upon, and you're buying tickets left, right, and center to try to win other great prizes and things like that. I mean, and there's some pretty outstanding raffle prizes as well. People were buying raffle tickets. I think they were like 3 for $50. I mean, people were buying three,
Yeah.
and just kept on. I mean, and again, the money just keeps piling up, and yeah,
And
for
the
it to,
major prizes that were given to by I mean, was it Air Canada? And Air Canada for uh, prize for 2 to fly anywhere. Is anywhere in North America.
yeah, WestJet also
Great.
had
Yeah.
one as well. I think there was one of the online raffles was for WestJet. So I mean, for both airlines to offer that, there was prizes. Like a lot of it was local stuff too. So I mean, like for example, like watching a Vancouver Canucks game in one of the suites. Lots of football related prizes. I mean, there was just so much. I mean, you'd be here for days to talk about how many prizes there were, and just the amounts of especially the silent auctions too. Like you see people just outbidding each other over and over and over. And again, if you wanted a certain prize from your favorite team, it was not out of the ordinary to see someone else come along and just put up a bid just to see if you'd come and raise your bid. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of that going on. And again, knowing full well that the money was going to charity, you're like, oh, I didn't want to spend that much, but okay, I'm going to do it because it's for a good cause, right? So, yeah, to hear that final number of $75,000 is astonishing and humbling too. I mean, wow. I mean, that is amazing. And again, CFL fans are absolutely crazy, but in an instance like this is crazy in the best possible way. So, I as you said, this is a must attend event. If you're going to Grey Cup, whether you're there for the week or you're just there for the weekend, you simply have to come and be a part of this. It really is a fantastic event, and all the money's going to a great cause. And like the CFL family is like nothing else when it comes to things like this. So I mean, all these people that were doing all these crazy events throughout the season, or even in the preseason, or during the off season, even like raising all this money and donating it at Grey Cup weekend is like words cannot simply express how amazing that is. And well, the bar has been set high yet again. So Winnipeg, you're going to be on the clock, and I don't know how you're going to top 75K, but believe me, you're going to have a whole lot of help in doing so. So, folks, I'm excited to see what y'all do decide to help raise money for it. I don't know if anyone else wants to try and take that Guinness World Record and try to visit the stadium as fastest and raise money as a result, or shave a Argos logo in your head if you're a Tiger Cats fan, or I don't know, whatever it is you want to do to help raise money. It's going to a great cause. In this case, in 2025, it's going to go to a Winnipeg-based cancer charity. Folks, I mean, that generosity is certainly appreciated, and definitely keep it going because it is so cool to see.
Yeah. Before we continue with the 2024 Grey Cup experience, I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. You can find us almost anywhere. If you're looking for any of the archive shows, you can head over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. All 9+ years of the shows that are there. You can find us also over on X, and that is at Alouettes FL Deck. You can find us over on Facebook. That's over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, and Instagram and YouTube. That's over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Speaking of YouTube, you can find not only the audio version of the show there, you can find the video version of the show, and you can also find our companion show. It is our post-game show, Flight Deck Live. We may be done with it for the year, but you can still go back and check every single one that we did this year. There are some good episodes, and that will be back for 2025. That's something that we can guarantee. Also, if you're looking to look for another kind of an archive also for Flight Deck Live, we are also on Twitch, and as over twitch.tv/Alouettes Flight Deck. Also, if you're looking for merch to rep, maybe for the upcoming Alouettes locker room sale on the 14th of December, head over to flightdeckgear.ca and grab some merch from there. Also, we are proud to be an affiliate sponsor for Royal Retros. It was my pleasure for the very first time to meet the man, the myth, the legend behind Royal Retros, Dustin. It was finally great to meet him and just let him know how good of a job that he has been doing with it. If you go over to royalretros.com and use the promo code Flight Deck at checkout, you will save 15% off your entire order. Also, finally, if you are watching on YouTube, any of our shows, make sure that you hit subscribe, you like, leave us a message. Also, hit the bell notification to know that when we do go live, you will know, and then you can tune in immediately then. So we do appreciate you. Before we get to the player portion and the game portion, and obviously then we finish up the show itself, Cliff. Is there? Because I really have two, and I thought this is probably the best time to do a little bit of segue into the game experience and stuff like that. Was there anything out of the ordinary, anything that you experienced, I guess game related or not, or maybe had something to do with the game or just the experience stuff that happened to you over the week that you were there in Vancouver?
Honestly, nothing really what I'd call out of the ordinary. I think a lot of the stuff that I got to be a part of was pretty much planned in advance. I, I will say though that the experience of meeting so many people that you may have only seen or encountered on social media to actually
Mm-hmm.
meet them in person is hella cool. We got a lot of people coming up to us saying, "Hey, we listened to the flight deck. We really appreciate what you guys are doing." And I really truly cannot put into words how good that makes us feel. Like to know that it's more than as Piffle's Pod likes to say, like only 7 people are watching. Like there are times where I feel like maybe that's true for us as well, but to find out the reach that we seem to be having, not just with other media members, but like fans from all over North America, even because we
Mm-hmm.
got like a lot of American people that come up for Grey Cup every year, even though there's no American teams. They still love the CFL experience, and they come and they be part of it, and they listen to the flight deck too, and they told us, "Hey, we love what you guys are doing." I mean, to me, that is invaluable, and it is again really humbling to know that so many people are listening to what you and I have to say about the Alouettes and the CFL in general. To know that they tune into our show and download it and doing all that, it really does mean a lot. So once again, so great to meet each and every one of you that came out and said hello, that noticed us. Again, if we're wearing our flight deck gear, then we weren't that hard to find. So you came up to us and you showed the love. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I do say thank you. It is, as I said, humbling and it's very much appreciated that you guys out there in the CFL universe show us the love. Again, like I feel safe speaking for Tim that both of us truly do appreciate each and every one of you. You know, inviting us into your homes or into your ears, I should say, and letting us talk Alouettes. I mean, it is a true privilege. And once again, thank you to each and every one of you that came out during Grey Cup weekend and just showing us the love. It is beyond appreciated.
All the more reason why we are so looking forward to our 10th anniversary broadcast season next year. All
Oh
the
my!
more reason. All the more reason. I
I
got two. I got
I
two for
can't
you.
wait.
I got two for you. So the first one you actually know about, obviously. So I get in. Cliff and I do the podcast on Thursday. The last episode of the podcast on Thursday, which is currently available, by the way, alouettesfightdeck.ca or on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Then I check in a little bit later than what I normally would at the media hotel, and Cliff lets me off. And I don't know if you had noticed anything out of the ordinary while you were there, because I think you may have dropped me off. We said our goodbyes and we left because I know we're going to get together later that night. And then the concierge, a woman from the concierge came out and said, "Are you checking in?" I go, "Yeah, I'm checking in." She goes, "Okay, come with me quick now." I'm like, "Okay." Now, to be fair, there were quite a few people around at this point. And I was like, "Okay, man, just a big, beginning party, because there were a lot of people in the lobby."
Mhm.
I go up there and say, "What's going on?" "We have Tuffy the horse checking in." I was like, "What?" So I'm standing there to get everything in. Then, and if anybody doesn't know, this is how long has this tradition been going on? This is the real start. I don't know if it's been Tuffy the entire time, but or a horse the entire time, but a horse literally comes to a local hotel wherever the game is being held and quote unquote checks in. So as if it is the start of Grey Cup weekend.
Yes,
So
and this goes back to I think I want to say 1948 when a bunch of Calgary fans brought a horse into the lobby of I think it's the Royal York Hotel in Toronto.
Toronto, yep, yeah.
And basically, the legend supposedly is they actually rode the horse through the lobby, and that's basically how it's sort of evolved since then. I think it's really truly been an annual thing over because it originally was only supposed to be when Calgary was in the Grey Cup or if the Grey Cup game was in Toronto, and now it's sort of evolved into every year, no matter what. Tuffy the horse, and I'm sure there's been a few Tuffy the horses,
Mm-hmm.
or you know a horse of another name or what have you to walk the horse through the lobby of a hotel, as you said. Could be any, at this point, could be any hotel in the host city. And I guess now check-in is the thing, which I'm kind of curious about. Like, does the horse have a credit card? Do they have photo ID? Like, how do they make the reservation? This isn't Mr. Ed making the reservation here. I don't think. I mean,
What was your name again, sir? Wilbur. Yeah.
once again, another reference that nobody under the age of 40 will understand. Even then,
Yeah. When the whole thing there, I was trying to come up with something unique. It's like, uh, did they give him the barn room suite? You know what I mean? It
ooh,
was, full of hay, perfect, there instead of the bed. Well, you got a nice bed there right next to it. You don't need a coffee table. You don't need a nightstand. You have a nice salt lick. I mean,
ooh.
nothing better than checking into your hotel room, Cliff, and getting your own salt lick. I tell you, man. I tell
Qu-
you.
Question: does oats count as a continental breakfast?
Uh,
If you get a
maybe.
complimentary continental breakfast, for him, would that be just like a big old sack of oats?
It could be a sack of oats. You put that together with a nice trough of water, man. Oh, nothing better. Nothing better. But that
Listen,
was
it's
that itself to start off my week. The time that I was there was like, that's cool.
you got to.
That really is. I mean, I know how some people feel about it when it comes to this type of thing. I've told the story to others. Some have been positive about it. Some have been like, really? But it's just I
It,
it's just the experience of being there and seeing it. Tuffy comes in there, the rider gets on, the rider got on to Tuffy and, literally walked right up to the desk. And I think I heard the greeting of some sort and I said, yeah, I'm here to check in. And it's like, it was cool. It was cool. So I mean, that's one of the few things I remember. And the other one, real quick, it's kind of football related, but not. And no, it is not political, but you'll understand why when I say this. A couple of friends and I, we after the it was after the the CFL fans fight cancer event. Went out to dinner and went to a local Boston pizza, and we were there. A couple of friends of mine and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, for some reason, these 20-something-year-olds come up to this person who I didn't see because I just saw the back of the person, and I got the person's I got a picture, and I guess got an autograph. And the person was wearing a Calgary Stampeders jersey,
hmm,
and then I see the person turn around, and I really just saw the profile itself, and said, "Oh." So him and me and the guys that were there, one was half my age, and it's like, that's not that person. There's no way in hell that's the person. The other two guys that I were with were our American friends, so they wouldn't know either way. So I spoke to the maitre d' as we were leaving. So I said, "Was that Stephen Harper sitting next to us? Former PM Stephen Harper?" He says, "Yes, it was." First thing out of my mouth to my friend was, "See, I told you that was Stephen Harper."
congratulations, you
Yeah, I
were
know,
right.
I know. So for me, I think those are probably the two things besides the game itself and the experience itself that I'm going to remember the most. So, um,
Question:
any
who's
anything
Calgary's?
anything can happen at Grey Cup, you know.
Which Stampeder jersey was he wearing? Like, was he wearing a
Oh, that's a good question. Was it a
like?
blank? It might have been a blank jersey, or it may have said, or did it say 24 Stampeders? I don't remember. I honestly don't remember because that to me it was like, I see who it is, and people have asked me, it's like, did you want to get us out of it? I go, no, it's not. I I'm not that type of person either way to bother somebody when they're eating dinner.
Hmm,
So, as I said, as I was just saying, anything can happen at Grey Cup. Anything can happen at Grey Cup, and obviously it did for a lot of people. So,
that's true. It's
yeah. So we're talking about the players itself. How many current and former people associated with the Alouettes did we have there this week? Isaac Demi Berglund, because we saw him after the CFLPA event
mhm.
on Friday. Um, who else was it? Wasn't Keith's former wide returner and wide receiver Keith Stokes? Wasn't he there?
He was at the CFL Fans Fight Cancer event along with
Yeah.
other former Alouettes, Nick Lewis and Devon Claybrooks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for more current players, yeah, Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, Austin Mack,
Yep,
Dylan Wynn.
yeah, Mac was a surprise because we just happened to see it on his socials that he had been invited, I guess, by the CFLPA to come in and do some stuff, and he did some pretty cool stuff on his social. So you should go head over to his Instagram and look up Boston Mac because he did some pretty cool stuff.
He sure did. I mean, like, just outstanding stuff. Davis Alexander, I know, was at the game itself.
Oh, Davis Alexander. Davis Alexander was sorry. Yeah.
I just said that.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought I had Sanchez in the head. So
well, yes, Davis Sanchez is a former Alouette, and he was
yeah,
there.
Yeah. But yeah,
with,
that was a surprise at Davis Alexander being there. He wasn't supposed to be there originally, and sure enough,
so that's the thing with Grey Cup. You just never know who's going to show up, whether it's former Alouettes, current Alouettes, maybe even future Alouettes are there. You never know, right? But,
and the cool thing too, by the way, is coming home. Besides the issues that we ran into with those new CT scanners over for at security at the Vancouver International Airport, Austin Mack was on our flight.
He was. Unfortunately, we should have tried to coordinate to see if we can get seats closer to him, but maybe after all the whirlwind stuff he was doing for social, maybe he just wanted to relax on his ride home. And
I think he was sitting behind us too.
He was sitting behind, but way down. So,
yeah.
But again, I wouldn't want to pester him either. I'm sure he's got more than enough fans. Wanting to take selfies and autographs and all that fun stuff. And again, he's always happy to do that, but still, let the man live a little too. So I mean, so yeah, to find out after the fact that he was on our flight home was pretty outstanding. So I mean, back to Montreal, his hometown now. So
I know. Next time that we do have him on the show, we're gonna have to ask him about his transition to living at Montreal full time. So hopefully we'll be able to make that happen very, very, very soon. So
hopefully he went winter coat shopping because he's going to need. He may not need it right now, but he's definitely eventually going to need a good winter coat. So
yeah, you think he's going to head over to the Canada Goose location over at Royal Mount or the one downtown?
Or maybe we order him one of our jackets. I'm sure will be very good for him in the winter.
There you go.
We may have to do something like that for Le Big Mac.
That's right. Just by choice itself, I decided to go to the game. I'd never been to BC Place before. So again, this being my first time in Vancouver, I wanted to see BC Place. And it's funny to be at BC Place and not see the Owls lose. Well, that was a plus.
I guess if there's an advantage to them not being in the Grey Cup game is that they won't lose the Grey Cup game. They won't have another loss at BC Place because they've experienced that. They've actually played a Grey Cup game at BC Place way back in 2005, and that did not end well for them. So
no,
really, truly, there is something to be said about the Alouettes and BC Place. So at least, yes, you could definitely say you did not see them lose at BC Place.
Yeah, I liked BC Place. Despite one issue that I had, there was a little bit of a draft from where we were sitting. I think they had some of the exit doors that were open for most of the game. Kind of made it a little chilly there, but maybe I should have worn maybe another layer or something. But overall, I love the way that BC Place look. I want to be there when the roof is open. I want to see what that type of experience is like because that looks really, really cool. Yeah. But all in all, sight lines from where we were sitting were pretty good. The scoreboard's pretty cool. The lighting, it's not in the same par as it is over at BMO, but it's pretty close. It really is pretty close. I like the lighting there at BC Place. Besides that, I was at the game, as I said, I was just there to watch the game. I was going for Team CFL. I just wanted to be there for the experience itself. It's funny, Cliff. I know you watched the halftime show on television, and I was there seeing the Jonas Brothers live. They did a good. I was interesting to see what they were going to do this year versus last year versus Green Day, and you know what? As you know, I know Jonas. I know the Jonas Brothers. I've heard their music. I know a lot of their songs. But you know what's funny, dude? I mean, they did a great job. It was a huge spectacle. They used the fans perfectly during one of the songs. It is with all the and then the graphics and stuff that they ended up using, the constant smoke, which helped with the lighting and stuff like that. And but to be honest with you, dude, I would put Green Day last year ahead of the Jonas Brothers this year. I really would. Something, because I went back and watched um, both halftime shows.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's because I was in Hamilton last year watching Green Day, but just something about Green Day. I really enjoyed Green Day a little bit more. I guess there's a difference between pop music and do we say punk rock?
I would, again, it was this, they were big in the 90s, which was about alternative music, which was
Yeah.
some of it grunge, some of it punk, some of it I don't want to say necessarily heavy metal, but kind of like a metal sound to it. For lack of a better term, I whenever I think about Green Day, I do refer to them as an alternative band. So
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I probably I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time there at the game itself. Again, anything that can happen in Vancouver, we leave the game, Cliff, and it starts to pour. I mean,
rain in Vancouver, shocking.
yeah. Lucky enough, it was only like 15, 20, 30 minutes that when we were under something, so it was fine. But overall, I enjoyed the game. Obviously, it would have been better if the Alouettes had been in it. Would have been a little bit more stressed. But again, I was completely wrong. I said a blowout for Winnipeg, and it was completely opposite. But then
Sure
again,
was.
if you think about it, Cliff, the line was completely wrong. And one thing that we had pointed out last year before the Alouettes played the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is how bad Zach Caleros is in the championship games. And he was just as bad. And it's funny to say, congratulations to all the Argo fans that we know. I won't say congratulations to the Argos, but I'll say congratulations to all the Argo fans that we know for being fans of this year's Grey Cup champions. So,
Actually, I will say congratulations to two Argos, two members of the organization, because they are actually friends of the show, so they definitely deserve their props. Brian Herlemana, former Montreal Alouette draft pick, who unfortunately did not he played with the Alouettes for just under 2 years, but was released. Went to Saskatchewan for a little bit, got released. Toronto picked him up late last year. Stuck with the team this year, has become a special teams demon for the Argos, and actually was involved in one of the, shall we say, more crucial plays of the game. That would be the illegal interference on a punt return.
I can't say a felony. You're crazy, crazy rules. What do you?
Yeah. But Brian was actually trying to, after the punt was blocked, it was actually Brian that was trying to get a hold of the ball and was pushed out of the way, and that became illegal interference, which is truthfully something I had never heard of before, or it's maybe I just never seen it happen. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened before. It's just never really
Add
seen
it to
it
the
in that
onside
incident.
punt. Add it to the onside punt.
Yeah, just one of those weird, wacky rules that makes the Canadian Football League so unique. So yes, Brian was dressed in the game. His name will go on the trophy, and he can truly call himself a Grey Cup champion. So again, always been a great guy when he with us when he was here in Montreal. Got nothing but love for Brian. So I'm very happy that he gets to call himself a Grey Cup champion. I would have preferred it was brought back last year and been part of the Grey Cup squad in 2023, but didn't work out that way. So he gets to be 2024 champion. So props to him. And a young man that we had on earlier this year, John Boss, who ended up selected by the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the practice roster, so unfortunately his name doesn't go on the trophy, but he'll still get a ring. He can still be a member of a championship organization in his first year, which is pretty damn cool. I mean, we talked to Shedler Furvius last year. Like, yeah, his name will be on the trophy because he was dressed, but again, it was his rookie season, and he got to be a part of the Grey Cup championship for the Alouettes, and he can certainly relate to how John's feeling right now. I mean, just even though he wasn't dressed, he was still there. He was still a part of the whole Grey Cup experience with the Argos, and no one can take that away from him. Like he truly can say, my rookie year, our team went to and won the Grey Cup, and he's gonna get the ring. He's gonna get the accolades, all that good stuff. and I'm so happy for him. I mean, we've had him on the show. If you watch that interview, you know what a great guy he is. Definitely well deserving, and it'll just be a matter of time before he does become a superstar in this league. You can bank on that. So once again, I will give congratulations to both Brian and John for
Yeah.
being, you know, in the right place at the right time, I guess. But yet, no, they, you know, in all reality, both these guys do work their tail off and definitely are very deserving of this Grey Cup championship. So
Yeah.
props
100%.
to them.
100%. I completely agree with you, dude. Again, it's nothing to take away from. I know a lot of Argo fans too that have uh, that we talk with, we converse with, whether it be professionally or via friends. Uh, Again, congrats. Congrats to
Yeah.
the Argos. Congrats to the Argos. They are the champs. They are the
Yes.
champs this year in 2024. So
And you know what? So many Alouettes fans and people associated with the team are getting like messages throughout the week saying it should have been us. It should have been us. It should have been us. Well, you're right. Should have been. And there's no question in my mind that had the Alouettes made it to the Grey Cup, they would have just as easily dog walked over this Winnipeg Blue Bomber team just as easily as what Toronto did. There's no
yeah, I
question.
think so. I think
I
so.
think even the Tiger Cats, had they made the playoffs and made it to the Grey Cup, I mean, simply put, Winnipeg was simply not prepared for this game. I mean, they put all their eggs in the Zach Claro's basket. And once he got hurt and was forced to wear a glove and try to throw, and which doesn't, I have a really hard time trying to understand. You've got the MOP and MOC in your backfield in Brady Oliveira, and he only gets 9 touches for 80 yards. What the f is that? Like Buck Pierce, the offensive coordinator for the Blue Bombers. What the hell is he thinking? Not only putting Zach Claros out there, like clearly it was a bad injury. Like I think during the garbage bag day for the Bombers, Zach Claros talked about he could see the inside of his finger. That's how deep the cut was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, neither did I until that was announced. Like he talked about that. Like I know he went into the room for stitches, and then they put a glove on his hand, like a hamburger helper glove on his hand to try and protect him. But it was painfully obvious this guy could not be throwing the ball, and yet they kept trying for deep pass after deep pass, and you wonder why he gets picked off. And I think one was returned for a pick six even.
Yeah, it got bad. It got bad there at the end.
But again, Oliveira's back there, and okay, fine, maybe it becomes too predictable. Run, 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 run. But you know what? Brady Oliveira is a damn good running back. I mean, I'm pretty sure that would have helped stem some of the, you know, the bloodletting, not just on Zach Laris's hand, but for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just baffling. Like, are you trying not to get a job in the Canadian Football League, bud? Like, I mean, like some of this play calling is just questionable at best. Like,
Yeah,
I don't get it.
it was a little weird, I will admit, but it's
Like,
uh
I pretty much said they were the Winnipeg Blue It Bombers because
you know what's funny? Wasn't there a rouge last year in the Grey Cup with the Alouettes, if I remember
yes,
correctly?
they conceded a rouge. Yes.
Right. You know where I think the turning point was in that game? When Toronto got their rouge because it tied it up at 10. And from that point, Toronto just went.
Well, I'd argue it was that blocked punt that turned it that again normally would have favored Winnipeg because they would have been able to recover deep in their deep in Toronto's own end and possibly added to or take even or actually I guess at that point they would have taken the lead, but instead it gave Toronto new life and they were able to score. And I think it was just shortly after that where Zach Caleros got injured and simply put. None of their backup QBs, I guess they didn't have any confidence. I don't know how many reps they got during Grey Cup practice week, but
Yeah,
clearly not enough. I mean,
yeah.
the fact that they felt they couldn't go with their backups and they had to march Caleros and his finger seemed to be just hanging on by a string other than being in that glove. And obviously, you know, if you don't have a hand to throw with, then of course, you're going to get picked off. You're going, like it was awful. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
but again, unfortunately, Winnipeg just did it to themselves. And props to the Argos, like they smelled the blood in the water, right? Like they saw, and I think Ryan Dinwiddie even said as soon as we saw that Clares was injured, we knew we were going to win this game. Like
Yeah.
we just changed our focus, changed the attack, and that was it. The defense takes over and literally dog walked the Bombers, which again, people should have seen this coming in a way. Just the simple fact that the last 7 Grey Cups the Argos have appeared in, they've won. Now this is their 8th time, like the 8th straight opportunity they've had for a Grey Cup, and they come through.
Isn't there 9th straight over Winnipeg alone in the Grey Cup?
Yep. I mean, again, I think a lot of people thought as soon as Chad Kelly went down that it was going to be a cakewalk for the Bombers, and I guess on paper it would have been, but clearly Nick Arbuckle didn't get that memo. I mean, he played a fantastic game. He was most outstanding player. I mean, a guy that 6 months ago was on the outs of the Canadian Football League and was ready to call it a career and start, coaching somewhere, but gets called back into action, steps up when Chad Kelly goes down to injury in the Eastern Final, leads the Argos to the Grey Cup, and leads them to the Grey Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you talk about feel good stories. I mean, Nick Arbuckle's had his trials and tribulations, but for him to turn in a performance like this on the biggest possible stage is nothing short of outstanding, and stands to reason. Like what happens, what becomes of the quarterback situation in Toronto, even because Kelly's going to be out potentially once again for the first 9 games of the season. This time because of injury, but I mean now you've got Nick Arbuckle who just went and won you a Grey Cup in relief of Chad Kelly. I mean, what do you do at that point? Like, how do you cast him aside to go back to Chad Kelly, provided he can come back from his injury? I mean, it was a pretty horrific injury, and it's definitely going to take time for Kelly to heal. But at the same time, that's the guy they've pretty much put all their eggs in that basket. So, I mean, it's going to make for a very interesting offseason and even training camp for the Argos. A lot will depend on just how well Chad Kelly heals from his injury, but all of a sudden, they may have a quarterback controversy on their hands later next year.
Yep. Argos have not lost a Grey. Argos have won their last 9 Grey Cup. 8 one.
8.
Last 8, dating back to the Grey Cup in 1991. Their last loss in the Grey Cup was in 1987. And yes, this was their 8th straight win over the Bombers in the Grey Cup.
It just goes to show if you see the Toronto Argonauts in the Grey Cup, you may as well take all your money, rob a bank, and take some more and put it on the Argos, because history has shown they will come away with a championship.
Yeah. So, lastly, to finish up the episode, post Grey Cup, Alouette fans got some interesting information today, didn't they? And it's funny. You and I talked about, and I think I had actually said that in our first show last year, post Grey Cup, I said Cody was going to get extended, and it happened.
Yep.
Alouettes, despite not winning the Grey Cup this year or going to the Grey Cup, they did extend another one of their players, and a very well-named guy that we've already been talking about this episode. But the Alouettes shored up a very important part of the defense through 2026.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, this gentleman was at the Grey Cup, not as a participant, but he was actually at Grey Cup itself as part of the festivities and at the game itself as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our joyous duty to report that Tyrese Beverette, number 26 for the Montreal Alouettes, has indeed extended his contract to the end of the 2026 season. So number 26 is here till 26. And yes, absolutely thrilled for that. Again, I don't have to tell you what an outstanding season Tyrese had this year. The fact that he was nominated for most outstanding defensive player of the Canadian Football League for the Eastern Division, I think that speaks for itself. Even if he didn't come away with the trophy, unquestionably one of the premier defensive players in this league. And the Alouettes being very intelligent and deciding to keep Bev around for essentially, it's going to be 2 years now, 2025 and 2026. Absolutely outstanding. There's no question in my mind that he's going to use losing the MODP award to Roland Milligan as motivation to keep getting better and to prove that he still is one of the premier players. And God willing, he'll be back in the running for MODP again next year, or maybe even MOP again next year. And maybe, just maybe, he finally may break that glass ceiling and get through to those awards. So we're definitely behind Bev all the way when it comes to that. Definitely thrilled for him to be staying in Alouettes red and blue. I talk about this all the time, and it's pretty clear the Alouettes feel the same way. You can't forget the Bev. Never, never, never.
Don't know much about it, so we're not going to comment. There it was some transactions on the CFL transaction wire.
Mm-hmm.
It did happen to be with a couple of guys who are currently free agents. We don't know the status. So all I'm going to say is go to the CFL transactions page. You'll see, and then it's more than just one player. There were some additions and stuff to the roster itself. Until there's actually some information that's out there, we're not going to speculate on these players' names that are there. But there are some notes. There are some current free agents that are on that list. So maybe the team will be making some announcements very shortly.
Yeah, if they do, then yes, we'll certainly talk about it on the next episode. And just to let you folks know, we are not quite done our. Even though the 2024 CFL season is over, our broadcast season is not quite over yet. So definitely make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed and following us so that you know when we go back live or release another show out in the wild. But yes, there are a couple of names on that list that, as we talked about during the last episode about the potential free agents to be, there is at least one that appears to be signed, sealed, and delivered for at least next year. But again, we don't have the details yet, so we're not going to. We'll just leave it at that. But suffice to say, if this does come to fruition, then this is definitely very good news for Alouettes Nation. So we'll leave it like that for now. And like I said, you can go to the CFL transactions page and you can put 2 and 2 together. But until we actually hear it officially from the team, we're gonna leave it like that for now. And feel free to check it out. But at least for sure 100%, because it was announced by the team, that Tyrese Beverett is staying put, which is great news in and of itself. But folks, this is the time. Like, a lot of dominoes are going to start falling now. Now that the Grey Cup's been handed out and the CFL season is over, a lot's going to happen between now and. Well, actually, I think they do have a bit of a freeze period during the holidays, and then from there,
we still got to talk though. Remember, we should have that schedule out in the next within I'll say the maximum 3 weeks.
Right. I'm talking about with any player transactions.
Oh yeah.
I mean, moves are usually made, and again, as you can see, coaching changes, administrative changes are starting to slowly happen throughout the league. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot to talk about for sure this offseason. So, again, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're following, make sure you hit that notification bell as well on YouTube so that you know that when we go live with a new episode, and we'll be talking about this stuff. I mean, if it pertains to the Alouettes, we will definitely be talking about it. We'll be offering up our thoughts. So if you haven't already, make sure you're on board with us.
Exactly. Okay, I think we could safely say, Cliff, that we do think that we'll be going into at least the first week of December with our shows, and we have some interesting ideas leading up to, which we're always proud with, is leading up to our season finale, which is the state of the team interview with the Alouettes president. So stay tuned for that. That should be in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. So
absolutely.
Again, we're gonna finish our 9th broadcast season on high notes, obviously. And as I said, was saying before, get ready for season 10 because we got some ideas. We really do. We got some ideas, so we're looking forward to it. So,
10 a decade of the Alouettes Flightdeck. I mean, that's pretty astounding in and of itself. And yeah, I'm excited to see not just what the 2025 CFL season holds, but I'm curious to see what we do in season 10. So I said it before and I'll say it again. Subscribe, like, comment, notification bell, all that jazz. Make sure you are part of the flight crew. Make sure you are with Tim and myself as we go into season 10, into 2025 and beyond.
That's right. That's right. 10 years of flight. 10 years of flight. So again, stay tuned to all of our socials for any news that maybe come out from the CFO or from the Alouettes. Stay tuned for anything on our socials. Also, for the next time we're going to be broadcasting, but we should see you next week. I don't see why we won't be. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, Cliff, I loved repping the CFL family and the Alouettes Flight Deck with you at the GreyT Cup this week, buddy. And it's on to 2025, so we'll see what happens there. So, but again,
Absolutely.
we're not done yet. So we'll see you guys very soon. So for the so everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.